here's Brody Brazil.
You know, in terms of all of the other team and stadium and arena and city and county and league and relocation issues going on right now with professional sports, I'm not here to even suggest that the Arizona Diamondbacks are an endangered species right now. That is not necessarily yet the case. However, sports fans down in the desert and in the valley, they might be a little extra sensitive lately because they just lost their hockey team. The Coyotes went to Salt Lake City. The league basically uprooted them from the desert, brought them up to the state of Utah. And currently at Chase Field, for a stadium that's not even 30 years old, there's a lot of different things going on right now. Improvements that need to be eventually made, repairs that probably should have already taken place. And it kind of begs the question, who fixes all of this? Who's going to be responsible for all of this? And then what does the team and what does the county do next with this ballpark, which is actually one of the oldest in the National League, but again, it shouldn't be going through all of these problems. Just to bring you up to speed on the big picture here, the team's lease is done with the stadium at the end of the 2027 season. That is now right around the corner. We're only a small handful of years away from that lease being expired with the team. So something has to work out with the new lease, but before that, a lot of things need to be sorted away here, like a roof that doesn't shut when fans are in the stands. They can't operate the roof properly with people at a game anymore. And that was a problem, as you're about to see this past exhibition season at the very start of the 2024 campaign. There was a rainout at Chase Field for a Diamondbacks spring training game. How do you have a rainout at a retractable roof stadium? It's because the rain came unexpectedly. They couldn't shut the roof with fans in the stands, so they had to basically stop and postpone the game. There's also the air conditioning problem. Fans are saying that inside the stadium, when the dome is and the roof is shut, it's too hot. Now, is that a problem of an aging HVAC system, or is that the result of climate change, or a combination of both? Who exactly knows? But something needs to get addressed there. You'd have to think that air conditioning in Arizona in the summertime for baseball games, that's got to be pretty high on the priority list. And the infrastructure of the building, they're already saying is kind of past its lifespan, which again is so amazing. This ballpark is not that old. Apparently it wasn't designed for the long term. But now here we are, about 30 years in, and it needs to be figured out for the next generation of Diamondbacks baseball at this venue, if in fact this is where they're going to stay. Also noteworthy, we take it back to 2018, there was a lawsuit that ultimately made the team, the Diamondbacks, responsible for repairs and upgrades. So as much as we talk about the things that are wrong, it's very clear who's at the helm in terms of actually taking care of these things. But the team is also frustrated with the venue. They're not sure how much longer they're going to stay. They want to build a ballpark village surrounding the stadium. It just doesn't have the same atmosphere and vibe. Chase Field doesn't have that like some of the new projects are getting. So the Diamondbacks want all of that. Well, as much as I've been talking about this here on the YouTube channel, it's been out there lightly and loosely in conversation. Now one of the local television stations in Arizona is starting to cover this story. Watch this.
The D-backs had a big boost in attendance this year. There was also an increase in the number of complaints about Chase Field, with reports of excessive heat and a lack of AC to falling concrete. In March, a spring training game was called after 6 innings on account of rain because of safety concerns closing the roof. Fans have been left wondering why all these maintenance issues haven't been fixed.
All revenues generated in connection with the stadium.
Community activist Diane Barker read through the 2018 agreement between the D-backs and Maricopa County, which clearly states the team will have sole control and responsibility for the operation and maintenance of Chase Field.
They're part of this contract, and they need to be at their best in good faith. My fundamental idea in life is if you can't maintain it, don't build it.
But it may not be that simple. The D-backs and Maricopa County Board of Supervisors are in ongoing negotiations to keep the team in downtown Phoenix. The D-backs' current lease to play at Chase Field ends after the 2027 season. One of the key issues is who will pay for the hundreds of millions of dollars in renovations the ballpark needs.
Right.
The team has not shown a lot of interest in pouring money into a facility where there's no guarantee they will be at a few years from now.
I think it's a great amount of civic pride when we have a professional sports team here and thriving. But once again, if you're going to do a deal involving a publicly owned stadium, you got to do right by the taxpayers. That's my number one priority.
Arizona's family did some more reading of the 2018 agreement and found the team is required to put $2 million a year into a reserve account that's intended solely for maintenance and repairs of Chase Field. The team is also required to put all net revenue received by the team for non-baseball bookings into the reserve account as well. There has been no dispute over the annual $2 million deposit, but financial statements provided by the county do not show any money going into the account from non-baseball activities, like concerts, shows, and events like Upper Deck Golf. When Arizona's family reached out to the team asking about the proceeds from non-baseball related activities, we were sent this statement. All of the payments that are required for under the MOU have been accounted for by the team and have either been paid to the Chase Field Reserve Fund or accrued on the company's books.
Teams tend to try to find ways to get around paying for things that they have to. And
Neil DeMoss runs a website called Field of Schemes, which tracks public-private stadium deals across the country. He said it's not unusual for a team to play hardball and not exactly honor every financial detail of a current agreement when it's negotiating a new one. DeMoss tells us Maricopa County may have every legal right to take the D-backs to court, but that's not in their best interest if they want the D-backs to stay.
You don't want to drive the Diamondbacks out of town. At the same time, the Diamondbacks owners do not want to be driven out of town, right? It's not like they have a ton of other options. Look what the Coyotes just went through. And it's not like they can just pick up and move to another metro area the size of Phoenix, because there are not any that are, do not already have baseball teams.
Utah might beg to differ there, Neil. By the way, Neil DeMoss, friend of the channel, I've had him on. Great guest. And some investigative journalism there from CBS 5, the television station in Phoenix. I also want to rewind us to some more coverage. This was back in September. And again, all of this remains relatively unchanged. It's been brewing, and I don't know if there have been many developments behind the scene. Obviously, the stadium hasn't been fixed. They don't have a new lease. They don't have anything squared away. But this was back from Channel 12 News, NBC, the affiliate down there in Phoenix. And what they said about this situation: the team's lease expires in 2027, and they have been negotiating with Maricopa County, which owns Chase Field, about that lease extension. At odds is the length of the new lease and the money for much-needed renovations. The team said they are willing to put in a lot of money to fix Chase Field, but were recently given a counteroffer from an earlier proposal, requiring a 50-year lease, and for the team to commit $150 million for stadium maintenance. Now, in the terms of non-relocation agreements and leases, it's kind of like buying a house. 30 years, for whatever reason, seems to be that magic number. Sometimes it's a 20-year deal, but a 30-year deal is kind of the gold standard. You would understand why 50 years caught everybody's attention, and $150 million is certainly a lot more than the Diamondbacks are probably wanting to pay. That's like a year's worth of team player salary. The Diamondbacks quickly responded back in September, quote, "We found this letter extremely offensive, especially since we have come to the table with hundreds of millions in resources to help renovate a ballpark we do not own, while the county has offered no dollars at all. We have tried to work in a collaborative fashion and in true teamwork with a broad coalition of supporters here in Phoenix. All along, we have done our part by investing millions into repairing this aging ballpark while receiving little to no assistance at all. The truth and fairness of the matter here, and bizarre attacks like this, do not represent the way our partners should do business. It is clear for all to see that this was a bomb-throwing tactic from a chairman who lost his primary and two other outgoing members who will not be part of future talks. To ask us to sign a 50-year lease renewal on a stadium we do not own when we are the only party bringing real dollars to the table is simply not a serious or logical proposal. We will continue to seek a solution and thank the state and city for continuing to work." End quote. I mean, again, this is a county and this is a team that a while back did not exactly see eye to eye together. And now who knows exactly where it goes. There's a lot of things already to be fixed. There's a new deal to hopefully be had, or there's a situation for the Diamondbacks to have to figure out. And part of that decision-making process, I'm telling you, is Salt Lake City and the state of Utah. Back at the beginning of this year, they approved $900 million on 2 separate occasions. Now, the NHL has already taken them up on that offer because $900 million, well, one of the $900 millions, went to Delta Center, it went to the Smith Group, it went to bringing professional hockey to Salt Lake City to fix up the Delta Center and area around it. The other $900 million is specifically earmarked by the state of Utah for a baseball stadium right at the Fair Park, and that just creates an option here for another Arizona team to become a Salt Lake City team. Like, that's something they could consider. Here's Derek Hall, president and CEO of the Diamondbacks, said, quote, "It woke a lot of people up, the Coyotes' departure to Salt Lake City. It woke a lot of people up and showed just how easily a team can be lured away. I can never see us leaving the area, but if there is a market out there that is very aggressive, you never know what extent they'll go to acquire a team," end quote. I mean, that is amazing right there, that we could be headed down a similar path, or that is even being brought up. I understand it's recent history and it's a direct correlation and comparison, but it really makes you wonder what's going to happen here with the Diamondbacks and the county and Chase Field and fixing it up and squaring away something new. Here are my takeaways. Again, Utah at $900 million, that's just sitting there, whether it's the Diamondbacks, whether it's the Angels, whether it's the Royals, whether it's the White Sox, whether it's the A's who maybe don't get things finalized in Las Vegas and are stuck in Sacramento. Utah is going to be a player in pretty much every other team's conversation that doesn't have something stabilized for the future, because Utah still exists. That money is good for, I want to say, another 7-8 years. It's valid. It's waiting for a team to come in, and they'll give that public money to the team to help build a stadium. Chase Field is the 4th oldest National League ballpark, and it's amazing how it's aged already. There have been a lot of new National League parks in the 2000s and in the 2010s, and it's not exactly, I don't want to say it's in a bad spot, because that's not true, and I think downtown Phoenix has definitely improved around it, but it's never been in the best spot, the most optimal spot where season ticket holders live, where people who want to spend a lot of money live, and people want to go to this spot. It's not in Scottsdale. It's not in Tempe. And so downtown Phoenix is fine, but it's not the best spot, and that's why the team is saying, well, we want to create something even more special if we're going to stay here for the future. Arizona is also kind of starting to run out of good places, good sites. I mean, we saw that with the Coyotes and the multiple different spots that they were looking at, and it's a smaller footprint and smaller acreage just for an indoor hockey arena. But a lot of the places they tried and looked into, they weren't even in the best spots, because construction and development are happening so widely now, and things are getting so spread out that those prime locations and real estate opportunities, they don't necessarily exist maybe like they used to. And the last thing I want to point out here is that the lease ends after 2027, and if there's no new deal or anything in the works, I mean, time is going to run out on this lease pretty much before anything else happens. Even if it takes another year or two to approve the roof getting fixed and the HVAC stuff getting squared away, and by the way, concrete problems, I wasn't even aware of that, it's going to take a while for even all of that to come to fruition. So I don't know what the options are for the Diamondbacks in terms of staying anywhere else in the Valley. It's either going to be Chase Field or nothing else. And so 2028 is coming quite quickly in terms of the timeline here. I'll be interested to see what the next move is, if any of this stuff gets resolved in early 2025. It just seems like a problem that's brewing underneath a negotiation that's trying to happen, and none of this is painting a really rosy picture for the future of the Diamondbacks, for the future of Chase Field. I hope they get this right. Like, baseball has such a tight hold on this market with spring training, and it should have no problems through the rest of the summer. They've got a venue. It's not that old. It might need some repairs, but they've got to figure out how to do this. And I'm not putting that all on the public at all, the county especially. They need to figure out how they got in this situation, how to fix this situation, and how to make sure that they do not keep going with that situation. That's the end of this video. Would really appreciate a thumbs up down below. That greatly helps me, this video, and this channel. And one more thing before this video comes to an end, go down there and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you are subscribing to this channel. That way I definitely get to see you back here next time.